And I am live. It's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. Hello, James. Good to see you, man. Thanks so much for joining me right now. I hope that, well, there's a doggy. So I'm going to be in and out of the chat if I don't, well, say what you want to say and we'll see. Hi there. In a previous video, I talked about the Messiah and the Messianic age, and I wanted to continue thinking about that and talking about it. I will link it somewhere. So, Messiah means anointed one, anointed with oil. And kings and prophets and priests, and at different times in different locations and different occurrences throughout time, were anointed with oil. Different types of oil, but it would be a ritual that would take place again and again. And this is where the concept of the Messiah, the anointed one, was born. So, according to tradition, because the kingdom of Israel was split, torn into two at the time of Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, to Judah and Israel, there will actually be two Messiahs. So the Messiah is known as a king, a warrior, a deliverer, a savior, a unifier, someone who, I think it was Jeremiah or Isaiah, who say that his power would be his sense of smell, in a way that he would be in tune with his body and his spirit and his mind, and he would be able to detect the fear of God in a good way with his nose, with his scent. So the kingdom was torn into two. And there were two messiahs then, according to tradition. One is the Messiah of the house of Joseph, which is the kingdom of Israel. It's Rachel's firstborn. He was king in Egypt, the second, but he ruled de facto at the time. He had dreams. He was very much like his father in a lot of ways, Jacob and Joseph. So the Messiah, the first one that is, would be of Israel, of Joseph. And the second one is the Messiah of the house of David, the son of David, the spiritual, whereas Joseph is the more material. And the second one would be Israel and Judah united, as is prophesied in Ezekiel and other places. But there's a catch. The spiritual and the physical work with each other, but tradition says that the first king Messiah of the house of Joseph, which is the precursor to the one of the house of David, which is seen as the Messiah, he might die. It's said that he will die, but this can always change because it has to do with us, the living humans who are in this world now. So there's a prophecy or a teaching that the first Messiah will die, and the second Messiah of the house of David will rise and maybe not take his place, but take his own place as the rightful king to Judah and Israel together. And there is a third sort of Messiah, which is the King Messiah, the one who will usher in a new age, not just for the Hebrews and the people of Israel and the land of Israel, but the world. As I see it, that will be a Messiah that will unite the human race, as plainly as I'm saying it, under one banner. And I feel it has to do with other things that will be going on in the way that we perceive reality and God. And there were prophecies about that as well. All the different prophets who were talking about the end of days, about a time where God and his name will be one. All those things where then there will be a switch, will change a disc, something to that effect. So the King Messiah, the third one, is meant to spread unity and to bring about this new age. And where the third temple fits in and where the resurrection of the dead fits in and all that, I don't know. And nobody really knows. And I may have mentioned it in the video I mentioned in the beginning of this video on the Messianic age. So it doesn't all have to go down like this. We have the power to affect change. This is how I perceive it to be collectively. It's an idea. It doesn't mean it will happen that way. The idea of the physical coming before the spiritual, and the physical or something which is perceived to be inferior in a way or not as refined, has to burn and die. Does it have to happen? No. But it sort of teaches you how you should conduct yourself. So that's the collective, and it's the individual, where when you want to gain more control, because a king, a messiah, is someone who is anointed and someone who is in some measure of control as a king. And when we look at it as with the individual, when we want to control ourselves, when we want to, whether it's learn a new skill, control our time, focus our energy, something needs to be sacrificed in order to gain something. A lot of times, things of worth, that's how they work. You got to give something to get something. And I'm sure there are exceptions, but you got to give something to get something is something that to me is like a simple. If you want to gain something, you sacrifice something. It just makes sense to me. In the individual, if you want to gain control, mastery, kingship of yourself, you need to let go of certain things. To each his own. All that bad karma, that dead wood that you need to burn off. The messiahs and what they represent, it's leadership, it's morality, it's also war. Not, the son of Joseph, the Messiah of the house of Joseph is said to die in a great war. The material is said to come to a head and explode in a way, in a kind of all-out war. And there are different teachings that discuss this, and none of it needs to happen. If we learn to treat each other right and go in a path of truth and of righteousness and of justice, then that doesn't need to happen. We can arrive at that reality, at that new age, at that shift of consciousness with the Messiah of the house of Joseph, even with the material one, if we sanctify it enough, if we're able to pull down that spiritual, to thread the needle through reality and make the smaller things great, connect them to their root. That can happen with material things. That's part of the Hebrew thing, and of many other faiths, of connecting the material to the spiritual. There is some danger in that, but when it's done right, it can be really, really just fulfilling, and it helps you to orient yourself because you can see how you're living properly. I mean, that's been my experience. When you take steps to sanctify the material, it rewards you with elevating that to some degree. Or you get elevated in other ways, but it gives you something back. I'm rambling a little bit, but I really do enjoy talking about this. The idea of the Messiah, a lot of people, especially in Israel, I don't know about the rest of the world, are all about, oh, when the Messiah comes, and Christians at large, I'm making a broad generalization here, Christians who are waiting for the second coming of Christ, right, of the anointed one, of Jesus, of the Messiah, as they perceive him to be. And again, he may have been Messiah until he died. That's where I stand. I will not be moved. He may have been a great guy. I don't mean that disrespectfully. Honorably, right? He was a sage, as the Talmud says, but he's not my Messiah. And that's that. The Messiah needs to be a living man, not a resurrected man, not a living human guy. Talking about the Messiahs. To be anointed, it's something that comes from. To be anointed is to be anointed with oil. Oil is something that is produced, right, manufactured from a fruit. You crush it, or you treat it, or you hard press it, machine press, hand press, whatever it is. You extract the juice by tearing apart the fruit. And this is part of the idea of that Messiah thing, the control thing, the king thing, where you take something physical and you put some limitations on it, or a certain focus on it in a different way. You are able to extract the more precious thing. The oil is the more precious thing of the olive. I mean, when we're talking generally, olive oil, really good olive oil costs a lot of money, more than the olives would. Although I don't know the stats or the numbers, but olive oil, that extra virgin, real, not the fake kind olive oil. In other words, you need to sacrifice something to get something of worth. In order to be a king, you need to be anointed from the outside. You can't anoint yourself, I think. I think it has to be someone. If there's a prophet, the prophet does it. If there's no prophet, then probably the people of the higher court, the president of the court. I actually don't know. I wonder how they anointed messiahs, kings at the time of the Second Temple when the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire were there. I wonder if anyone knows. Please fill me in. Put it in the comments. I think I'm going to say goodbye now. I'm not going to go for something else. I'll just say that you are anointed from people on the outside. I told you I was rereading Proverbs recently. Well, I said that in a video a few videos ago. I've been rereading Proverbs, and one of the verses there is, "Let the foreigner speak your praise, and not you, and let the stranger speak your worth, and not your lips." You are anointed with oil to signify that idea of coming through, of tearing something apart in order to reach the more valuable thing. You're anointed with oil by someone else, by a prophet or a leader, someone of a dignitary, because it's a responsibility. It's a burden that you're taking on when you take on that crown, when you take on the crown of being a priest, let's say, a prophet for sure, a king definitely. I say priest possibly because it's a birthright, hereditary thing. Nevertheless, the tribe of Levi, the Levitical tribe, has a very demanding connection with the Most High. So yeah, there's a burden there too, for sure. Because you're taking on a burden. When we decide as individuals that we want to become better, rule ourselves with justice and righteousness and truth and in faith, and we find a lot of obstacles in our way all the time because that's the way of the world, we need to work through that. So the different things in our life, the feedback that we get in our life, will be of righteousness and some of being right, being anointed, if not with actual oil, then with the equivalent of things that are of worth because we abstained from this or acted in this way. What we do counts. There's the Messiah that we're all looking for, and there's the Messiah within ourselves. We're not supposed to wait for anyone to deliver us. It's on us to deliver ourselves first. And whoever saves one life, namely his or her own, it's as if they save a world entire. That's a paraphrase. I'm paraphrasing the Maimonides, the Rambam. So I really do hope and pray that I be able to muster the strength and the courage to rule myself with righteousness and with truth and faith and a small measure of honor that it will be able to give me a positive feedback loop. And I hope you all have a continuation of a good continuation of a wonderful week. It's certainly summer. Let's have a good one. I will see you Friday. God bless.